My topic today is acute tubular necrosis, as you all know. So, what is acute tubular necrosis or acute tubular injury? So, earlier we used the term acute tubular necrosis. Now we are also using the term acute tubular injury. So, basically, it is characterized by acute renal failure and often, but not always, morphologic evidence of tubular epithelial cell injury. Okay, so this epithelial cell injury can be in form of epithelial cell necrosis, that is tubular epithelial cell necrosis. But because this tubular epithelial cell necrosis is often not present in our cases, whenever we are seeing a case of acute kidney failure or acute renal failure, often there is no presence of tubular epithelial cell necrosis, but evidence of cell injury is there. So, pathologists now use the term acute tubular injury in case of acute tubular necrosis. Okay. So it is the most common cause of acute renal failure, and in case of hospitalized patients, in more than 50% of cases, ATI is the cause of acute kidney injury. Okay, so there can be multiple causes of acute tubular injury. Now, broadly, we can divide these causes into two categories. So, first there is ischemic type of injury, and it happens due to ischemia, which can be due to decreased or interrupted blood flow. Now, another major category of causes will be direct toxic injury to the tubules. Now, when coming to the ischemic causes, it can be due to interrupted or decreased blood supply to the kidney, which can occur due to some kind of microangiopathy or some kind of injury to the vessels, and this can happen due to different vasculitis like TTP, thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, or HUS. Also, there is another case where blood supply can be reduced, and that is hypovolemic shock. So the patient is suffering from hypovolemia, that can be due to some major trauma, excessive blood loss. So there will be hypotension, tachycardia, and patient will go into shock. So in this case, blood supply will be reduced to kidney, and that will lead to ischemic type of acute tubular injury. Now, the other type of causes are the toxic type of causes, and there can be various type of toxins. Toxins can be endogenous as well, like hemoglobin and myoglobin. So, now coming to a detailed discussion of these types. Now, the ischemic type of acute tubular injury is also known as anoxic necrosis or shock kidney. Now, as I already mentioned, it occurs due to the hypoperfusion of the kidney, resulting in the focal damage of the proximal part of the convoluted tubules. Now, why this happens in the proximal part, we will come into that discussion later also. Because this happens because the proximal convoluted tubular cells are more sensitive to these ischemic damages. Okay, so these cells are more sensitive because these cells are actively participating in the roles, in the functions like reabsorption, secretion. So these cells are more sensitive to damage. Now, the different causes, as I already mentioned, microscopic polyangiitis, microangiopathies like HUS, TTP. It can be due to shock, which is mainly hypovolemic shock, that is post-traumatic surgical burns and dehydration. And then it can be due to crush injury. It can also be due to non-traumatic rhabdomyolysis induced by coma, muscle disease, alcohol, and it can also be due to mismatch blood transfusion or black water fever. Black water fever we see in cases of malaria, that is malignant malaria, due to uh, which parasite will cause that? Plasmodium falciparum, exactly. Now remember, the first three causes, they will cause pure ischemic type of tubular injury. Whereas the last two causes, they will cause a combination of both ischemic and toxic type of tubular injury. So you have to keep that in mind, that in the last two causes there will be a combination of both effects. It will be due to ischemia. It will also be due to the toxic effect, because in the fourth cause we can see rhabdomyolysis. Rhabdomyolysis will cause release of myoglobin into blood due to muscle breakdown. So this myoglobin will also cause a direct toxic effect on the tubular cells. And the second cause, the mismatched blood transfusion. Since there will be hemolysis, there will be hemoglobin, which is toxic to the renal epithelial cells. So it will also have a direct toxic effect. Next, coming to the toxic acute tubular necrosis. So it is also known as nephrotoxic or toxic nephrosis, and here a direct damage to the tubular cells, which is again more marked in the proximal convoluted tubular cells, is seen, and it is caused by injection or inhalation of different types of toxic agents. So the causes can be general poisons like mercury chloride, mushroom poisoning, insecticides. Then there can be heavy metals poisoning like mercury, lead, arsenic, gold, etc. And then there can be different anesthetic agents and also some antibiotic drugs like gentamicin. It can be due to radiographic contrast material, and it can also be due to organic solvents like carbon tetrachloride. Okay, so just as I mentioned in the previous slide, that there are certain instances where we see a combination of ischemic and toxic injury. Ischemic and nephrotoxic type of ATI. So this will occur in case of mismatched blood transfusion and other hemolytic causes and other hemolytic crisis, which is causing hemoglobinuria. So the other hemolytic causes will be different types of hemolytic anemias like sickle cell anemia or like paroxysmal nocturnal hematuria. So these are the hemolytic anemias, and they will again cause both ischemia and it will also cause hemoglobinuria, leading to direct toxic injury to the tubular epithelial cells. The next, we are coming to a table. So often you are getting short notes on acute tubular injury. So in that case, it is very helpful for you to retain marks if you make a tabular comparison between the two causes. Okay, so ischemic acute tubular necrosis is more common, whereas toxic tubular necrosis is less common. And the ischemic ATI will be mainly caused by shock, crush injury, and the toxic ATI will be caused by poison, heavy metal, and certain drugs. Now, grossly, in case of ischemic ATI, the kidney will be enlarged, swollen, and the cortex will be pale and the medulla will be dark. In case of toxic, we see the same picture. Now, coming to the microscopy, there is a marked difference between the microscopic changes seen in ischemic ATI and toxic ATI. So, in case of ischemic ATI, we see that the tubular necrosis is patchy and involving relatively short lengths of the proximal convoluted tubules and the proximal straight tubules and the ascending limbs of Henle. Whereas in case of toxic ATI, the affected part will be extensive. So there will be extensive necrosis present along the PCT segment. This is particularly seen with mercury, and along with this there will be necrosis in the distal convoluted tubule, particularly parts of the Henle's lobe. Okay, now the prognosis in case of ischemic ATI is relatively poor, whereas the prognosis in case of nephrotoxic ATI is relatively better. Okay, now coming to the pathogenesis. Now, what is the pathogenesis involved? Now, since ATI is the most common cause of acute kidney injury, so it becomes a very important topic, and we also need to know the pathogenesis. So, in the pathogenesis, there are basically mainly two steps involved. One is the tubular epithelial cell injury, and another is the persistent and severe interruption or disturbance in the blood flow. Now coming to the tubular cell injury. So I already discussed that the proximal tubular cells are mainly injured because they are more sensitive to hypoxia and they are more vulnerable to toxin. So this ischemia will cause some structural changes in the cells or epithelial cells of the proximal convoluted tubule. Now what are these changes? So first there will be a loss of polarity. Now what we understand by polarity? So in your first year in physiology you have all read that across the cell membrane there is maintenance of a constant gradient of concentration of sodium and potassium ion. Okay, so inside the cell we can see that there is the concentration of potassium is more, and outside the cell the concentration of sodium is more. Now this gradient is maintained by a very important membrane bound enzyme or membrane bound protein, that is the sodium potassium ATPase pump. Now this pump is responsible for maintaining the cell polarity. Now what happens whenever there is ischemic damage? There is redistribution of the sodium potassium ATPase pumps and many other membrane proteins like this from the basolateral side to the luminal surface. So this will hamper the polarity of the cell, and this will result in abnormal ion transport across the cells, and this will also result in increased delivery of sodium into the distal convoluted tubule. Okay, now I will show you a diagrammatic representation of this to I can understand that this can be a little bit difficult for you to understand, so I will show you the diagrammatic representation. It will be easier for you. Now this increased sodium in the distal convoluted tubule, it will lead to reflex vasoconstriction of the afferent arteriole via tubulo-glomerular feedback. Okay, so this response, this reflex vasoconstriction of the afferent arteriole, this will decrease the glomerular filtration rate. Okay, so then due to this whenever this ischemia is happening, there is another mechanism that is taking into place where the tubular epithelial cells, they are secreting various cytokines. So as you have all read in the inflammation chapter, then whenever these cytokines are released, they will attract the leukocytes in the site, and these leukocytes will cause subsequent injury. Now in time, these injured detached cells, the cells will detach from the basement membrane, and once these detached basement membrane cells, they come into the tubular lumen, they will cause luminal obstruction, and thus they will raise the intraluminal pressure. Okay, and with increase of this intraluminal pressure and due to this luminal obstruction, GFR will be further decreased. Okay, so in addition, the GFR in the lumen damaged cells. Okay, so there is another mechanism that is contributing in the decrease of GFR. So whenever these basement membrane cells or the epithelial cells, they are damaged, the fluid from the tubule is leaking into the interstitium. So with this, the pressure in the interstitium will rise. It will cause pressure on the tubule, and it will further increase the tubular obstruction, and it will further decrease the GFR. Okay, so this is the diagram I was talking about. So here you can see on the top of it, on the top right, we can see ischemia. So whenever there is ischemia, it will cause vasoconstriction of the afferent arteriole. So basically in the glomerulus, one arteriole is pulling the blood, it is taking the blood inside the glomerulus, and one arteriole is taking the blood outside the glomerulus. The afferent arteriole is taking the blood inside the glomerulus. So if there is constriction of the afferent arteriole, so less blood will go to the glomerulus, less blood will be filtered through the glomerulus, so this will naturally decrease the glomerular filtration rate. Okay, so here due to the toxic injury, there will be epithelial injury. So here in this flowchart we can see the epithelial. Can you all see this flowchart from behind? I think it's a little bit hazy, but the epithelial injury on the left hand side, we can see the epithelial injury, which will cause decreased sodium reabsorption, which will increase sodium. So whenever sodium is not being reabsorbed in the proximal tubule, it only means that the sodium will remain in the fluid, in the tubular fluid. So there will be increased sodium in the fluid of the distal convoluted tubule. So this increased sodium via the tubular glomerular effect, it will cause afferent arteriolar vasoconstriction leading to decreased GFR. Again, the detached cells in the tubular lumen will cause intertubular obstruction and will cause decreased urine output due to decreased GFR. And again, the cells that are being damaged in the basolateral side will cause leakage of fluid into the interstitium, causing increased interstitial pressure, causing pressure on the tube and causing decreased GFR, and in turn finally causing decreased urine output. So all the effects all together, finally what is it doing? It is basically decreasing the urine output, and this is what we will see when we will discuss the phases of acute tubular injury, that in the first phase, in the first 36 hours, decreased urine output is basically the first symptom or the first sign we are seeing. Okay, now the next mechanism is disturbed blood flow. So there can be different hemodynamic alterations. Now, one of them is the intrarenal vasoconstriction. So, whenever there is intrarenal vasoconstriction, there is reduction in both the glomerular blood flow, and also there is reduction in the oxygen supply of the thick ascending limb of Hemley, and also the straight segment of the proximal tube. Okay, now there are other vasoconstrictor pathways as well. Say for example, whenever the proximal tubular cells are undergoing the ischemic stress, they are secreting endothelin, and in turn that is secreting the vasoconstrictor. The endothelin itself is a vasoconstrictor, so there is increase in endothelin, and there will be decrease in nitric oxide and prostacyclin. So these two are vasodilators. So since the vasodilators are decreased and the vasoconstrictors are increased, so the result effect will be vasoconstriction. Also there will be effect of the renin-angiotensin system, which is stimulated by the decreased sodium in the distal convoluted tubule. So it will again lead into the vasoconstriction. Okay, now the direct effect of ischemia toxin on the glomerulus will also reduce the glomerular filtration index, ultrafiltration coefficient. Okay, so this is a summarized flowchart. So here we can see that ischemia will cause vasoconstriction. Basically, the same thing I showed you in the previous flowchart. So ischemia is causing, on the right side, ischemia is causing vasoconstriction, which is in turn causing tubular injury and also causing decreased GFR. The toxins will directly injure the tubule, and this will lead to sloughing of cells, interstitial inflammation. Now the sloughed cells will cause obstruction and decrease the GFR. It will also decrease the urine output. Okay. Now coming to the affected parts. Okay, so in the ischemic type of tubular injury, we can see on the left side. So this is the ischemic type of tubular injury. The red part, the parts marked with red is the parts that denote necrosis, and the parts that are marked with green are the parts that denote cast. So necrosis will be seen. So see that there is a patchy involvement in the proximal straight segment of the proximal tubule, and also in the ascending limb of Henle's loop. So this kind of patchy involvement and patchy presence of cast will be seen in ischemic type of injury. Whereas you can see on the right side in the toxic type of acute tubular injury, here we can see that extensive areas has been marked with red. So the extensive part of tubular necrosis will be seen in case of toxic type of ATN. Okay, and in both the cases we can see that the DCT has been colored with green. So basically casts will be found in the distal convoluted tubule. Okay, now this is the gross picture. It is showing that showing the picture of the ischemic type of acute tubular necrosis. Here we can see that both the kidneys both the lobes, both the sides of kidneys, they are swollen, and here the medulla is dusky red, and the cortex is pale yellow, pale in color. Okay, now coming to the morphology, the tubular epithelial injury at multiple points along the nephron with large skip areas in between, as I already showed you, and this will be accompanied by ruptured basement membrane and occlusion of the tubular lumen by casts. Okay, now what type of casts can we see in these cases? Now the casts can be cell. The casts will be mainly cell casts, so they can be WBC cast and they can also be RBC cast in this case. Okay, so the straight portion of proximal tubule and the ascending thick limb in renal medulla is especially vulnerable, but focal lesions may also occur in the distal tubule, often in conjunction with the cast. And there will be accompanying interstitial edema and accumulation of leukocytes within the dilated vasa recta. And there will be evidence of epithelial regeneration in form of flattened epithelial cells. Okay, so this is the picture. Here we can see on the left side, so there is a black arrow. It is showing that the tubular it is showing the tubular lumen. So inside the lumen there are some amorphous pink cells. So these are the necrotic cells that are being accumulated in the lumen. And on the right side, that is the higher power, the higher magnification. Here we can see that all the capillaries around the tubule, they are dilated and congested. That is because of the inflammation. And also we can see that the cells lining the tubule, that are the tubular epithelial cells, if you see closely, some of the cells have nucleus, some of the cells have lost their nuclei, meaning that they are already necrosed, and some of the cells are inside the lumen, so they are the necrosed cells. Okay, so coming to the clinical features. So in case of acute tubular necrosis, we are seeing three stages. First is the initiation phase, then the maintenance phase, then the recovery phase. So in the initiation phase, it lasts about 36 hours, and here we can see the inciting medical, surgical or the obstetric events, and the only indication of tubular injury in this stage is slight decline in urine output and also increase in blood urea nitrogen. At this point, oliguria could be explained by a transient decrease in blood flow, as I already shown you during the pathogenesis stage. So since there is transient decrease in blood flow, there will be decrease in GFR, leading to slight decline in the urine output, that is mild oliguria. Now in the maintenance phase, there will be sustained and increased oliguria, that is decrease in urine output, and here the urine output can be as low as 40 to 400 ml per day. So along with it, there will be salt and water overload, there will be rising blood urea nitrogen, there will be hyperkalemia and metabolic acidosis, and there will be other manifestations of uremia. In the recovery phase, we can see there is a steady increase in the urine output, and it can go up to as much as 3 liter per day. Now in maintenance phase we saw hyperkalemia, but in the recovery phase, instead of hyperkalemia, we will see hypokalemia. There will be increased vulnerability to infection at this stage, and the renal tubular function will be eventually restored, and the concentrative ability of the kidney will improve. So at the same time, the blood urea nitrogen and creatinine levels will go down. Okay, so the subtle tubular function impairment may persist for months, but most of the patients, they can recover completely if they are going through the proper treatment and management. Now, what are the complications of acute tubular necrosis? We will not go into detail, we will just enumerate the entities. There can be electrolyte abnormalities, there can be intravascular volume overload, there can be hypertension, there can be uremic syndromes, there can be anemia and infections. So if given a short note, you can write, all of you can write 1 or 3 lines for all of these topics. For diagnosis, the mainstay of diagnosis will be, so in this case we have to look for abnormal cells. Not only cells, we have to also look for casts. So in this case there will be presence of WBC and RBC. Along with it, we have to look for cell cast like RBC cast or WBC cast in the urine. Okay, so biochemical tests done are the blood urea nitrogen and creatinine. So in the maintenance phase, these two markers will be on a rise, where on the recovery phase, so if we are monitoring a case of ATI or ATN, so the recovering on the recovery phase, BUN and creatinine both will decline and come to normal. And final stay is a biopsy. A kidney biopsy will confirm the diagnosis, and then we have to also do the blood sodium and CT scan. Okay, thank you.